I've been thinking recently about unusual partnerships, and I was watching a little clip this morning. It was about a bird called the honey guide and an animal called the honey badger. The honey guide, this particular species, has got the Latin name indicator indicator, which kind of indicates something. It's basically it's able to go and look for where beehives are, particularly in Africa, where it lives. And there's a lot of debate about the relationship it has with the honey badger, but the bird can do this call and can locate where beehives are for a very large area. And the honey badger is very good at digging out the hive. So, however much that happens, it certainly seems to happen in some cases. There's also a very interesting symbiotic relationship, kind of working together between this honey guide bird and some of the local tribes people in certain areas of Africa, where they follow its call and they imitate its call to communicate with it, and they then go and find where these hives are and take the honey. And sometimes we have unusual working together that happens in life. I was watching a video too about people called scam baiters, which you might have heard of. They're people who are able to get in and they're good at hacking, and actually they kind of reverse the process of scammers who rip people off and so on. So they get in there and they manage to get into their computers and their phone lines and their CCTV and so on, give them a hard time, and try and undo some of the nasty work that's being done by some of them. And they can work amazingly in partnership with some of the very untech people, the most vulnerable people, those who are over 65. Not saying all people over 65 are untech or vulnerable, but the fact is that some of those people are the ones that are targeted very much by scammers. And the scam baiters, the hacks, the people who have these YouTube channels and they work to really defeat scammers, they can actually help the elderly people quite a bit. Very different people, very different set of skills, but actually, as they work together, they're actual in partnership in a sense. They're working together to defeat a common enemy, and in fact, some of the scam baiters actually imitate elderly distressed people and reel in these scammers until they can get in there and get hold of their information on their computers and pull it out, and then of course have a bit of a time of exposing them and trying to bring them to justice as well, and giving them generally a very difficult time of it. So unusual partnerships, unusual working together, unusual alliances between what appears to be completely different people, completely different animals working together in symbiotic relationship, which is very common in nature, and also the kind of man and animal relationship, like with the honey guide and the tribes people who go and find these beehives and go and find the honey. And there's lots of symbiotic relationships in nature, and there's lots of opportunities to work together. Sometimes with people that we wouldn't expect to. Sometimes it's a challenge, but also we can be open to unusual partnerships because God can use those in all sorts of ways for his purposes, for a good outcome. Sometimes the mechanisms and the way he uses things are not the way that we would think. Habakkuk, the prophet Habakkuk, talks about God using the Babylonians, which I always found incredible, because obviously Habakkuk was thinking, these are our enemies, these are awful people. How on earth can you use them? Lord, how can you use people who seem to be completely the enemies of God for your purposes? And God says, I'm going to use them because I'm going to judge the people of Israel. I'm going to call them into judgment, but remember that I'm also going to deal with the Babylonians. And so it might not look the way that you expect it to look, but it's for a greater purpose. And we look at Numbers chapter 22 as well today, and the story of Balaam and his donkey. I love this story. Numbers chapter 2, verse 21. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. So he was on a bad course at this point. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his two servants with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord in the road, with a drawn sword in his hand, she turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat her to get her back on the road. And then they go into a narrow path between two vineyards with walls on both sides. The donkey saw the angel. She pressed closer to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat her again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. And Balaam, of course, was very angry at this point. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," he said, having an argument with the donkey, as one would, of course. So then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell face down. And this is God's means of challenging this guy who's going after the money, but he's about to curse Israel, and he's doing it for profit. And God uses the stubbornness of the donkey, his own beast who's been faithful, who's been serving him, but uses that donkey. Of course, we think of Zechariah, the book of Zechariah, where the foal of a donkey serves Jesus and takes Jesus into Jerusalem as well. God uses all sorts of different ways, sometimes the most humble and unusual. And I love the story of Balaam because it just it's God's sense of humor is infectious, really, in it, isn't it? It's just fantastic. You see the proud, arrogant, stubborn prophet who's really on the wrong course being confronted with the equally stubborn donkey who's serving God's purposes in the moment and actually responding to the angel of the Lord. So I want to pray today that God uses us to be open to any and every opportunity, that God will bring us into maybe unusual partnerships, situations we are surprised by, that where God uses us, we might feel like the donkey, we might feel like we're not great, yet God can use us for unusual circumstances and purposes. And God might use unusual measures in dealing with us, in dealing with situations, and unusual methods that he has, unusual actors and players in this whole drama of living out this life for Jesus. And sometimes God uses people that are a great blessing in a situation, people that we did not expect, and circumstances we didn't expect. He uses instruments and methods we did not expect for his glory. I pray that we will be open to those things, and that God would surprise us and give us a sensitivity to the Holy Spirit, that we'll be willing and ready. And Lord, forgive us if we haven't let you be involved in circumstances sometimes, and we haven't seen what you are doing. We haven't seen sometimes how you maybe have sent people into that place in our lives that might feel irritating and might feel frustrating. They might feel like a real problem to us. And yet it might be you are working to work in our own hearts in that circumstance as well. So I pray that we will be open to your unusual partnerships, your amazing ways of working, that we will see the creativity of God in the way that you think, Lord, that your thoughts are higher than our thoughts, your ways are higher than our ways, and you do things more wonderfully, more amazing than we could ever ask or imagine or think. And I pray that we would be aware of your purposes, Lord, that we would be sensitive to your Holy Spirit, and we'll be hearing your voice. And I pray that everybody who watches this video will also see you intervene in their lives, see you intervene in their circumstances in ways that surprise them, in methods that surprise them, through the instruments of heaven that surprise them, through partnerships and ways of your working which surprise them, and that it will all be done for the glory of God and for your name to be honoured, and that we will be kept in a humble place so that we can serve your purposes well. Bless you today, and I pray that will be helpful for you as well.